The bench was hers first. That was the thing Mara kept coming back to. She had found it in the second week of October, on a Tuesday, in a part of the Vondel Park that most tourists never reached because the path curved away from the main canal and then narrowed unexpectedly, discouraging casual wandering. It was a green iron bench beneath a horse chestnut tree, facing a small pond that reflected the sky like a mirror that had been left out in the weather too long. It was perfect. It was private. It was hers. She arrived the following Wednesday with her notebook, her coffee thermos, and her particular silence, the silence of a person who has been on the road for 6 years and has recently, without planning to, stopped. A 2-month assignment gap. No pitch accepted. No flight booked. Just Amsterdam, a sublet apartment 4 streets from the park, and the vague understanding that she was supposed to be resting, which she did not know how to do. He was already there. He was sitting at the far end of the bench with a large sketchbook open across his knees, a mechanical pencil moving in small, deliberate strokes. He did not look up when she appeared on the path. He was wearing a dark olive coat and had the particular stillness of someone who had also chosen this spot on purpose. Mara stood for a moment. Then she sat down at the opposite end of the bench, opened her notebook, and said nothing. They coexisted in silence for 40 minutes. Then she left. He was still drawing when she went. On Thursday she arrived earlier. He was already there. She sat. He drew. She wrote, or tried to, her pen moving in slower circles than usual, less certain. At one point, she looked up and caught him looking at her, not at his sketchbook. He returned to the sketchbook immediately. She returned to her notebook. Neither of them said anything. This continued for 9 days. They arrived within minutes of each other every morning. Sometimes he was first, sometimes she was. And they sat at opposite ends of the bench and worked in parallel silence, and they did not speak. And they did not acknowledge how strange it was that they kept returning to exactly the same spot at exactly the same time. The city was enormous. The park alone had dozens of benches. And yet, on the 10th day, it rained. Not a drizzle. A real rain. The kind that announces itself. Mara had her umbrella. Theo did not. She watched him for 30 seconds, sketchbook pressed to his chest to protect it, shoulders up around his ears, clearly unwilling to leave. She moved to the center of the bench. She tilted the umbrella toward him without a word. He looked at the umbrella. He looked at her. "You don't have to," he said. His voice was lower than she'd expected, measured, with the faint shape of a French education under his Dutch. "I know," she said. He shifted toward the center. They sat under the umbrella together, too close not to be aware of it, rain loud on the canopy above them. After a moment, he opened his sketchbook again. She opened her notebook. "What do you write?" he asked, without looking up. "Travel pieces, usually. Right now, nothing." "Why nothing?" "I'm not traveling." He nodded as if this explained something he'd been trying to work out. "What are you drawing?" she asked. He turned the sketchbook toward her. It was the pond, the tree, the path curving away into the park, rendered in fine architectural lines, precise and quietly beautiful, with a warmth in the shading that surprised her. It was more feeling than drafting. "You've been drawing the same view for 9 days?" she said. "Different light each day." He turned the book back. "The structure is the same. Everything else changes." Mara looked at the pond. "I've been trying to write about fog," she said, after a moment. "I keep getting it wrong." "What's wrong with it?" "I keep describing it as still. But fog isn't still. It moves. It's just slow enough that you can't see the movement while you're watching." He was quiet for a moment. Thinking quiet, not uncomfortable quiet. Like watching a clock, he said. Exactly like that. They looked at each other briefly, with the specific attention of two people recalibrating. After that, the silence was different. It had been introduced. They talked in fragments over the following days. Small, unhurried exchanges that neither of them seemed to be initiating deliberately, that arrived naturally in the spaces between working. She learned that he was an architectural illustrator who had moved to Amsterdam 3 years ago from Lyon for a commission that became a career. He learned that she had grown up in Hamburg, had left at 22, and had been writing for travel publications ever since, most recently based out of Lisbon before the gap. They did not exchange names for 2 weeks, and when they finally did, she offered hers first, one morning when a dog ran across the path and its owner called out, and it seemed absurd to keep omitting it. There was a small shared recognition that this was a threshold. Theo, he said. Mara, she said. He repeated it once to himself, like he was committing it to something. November arrived. The mornings grew colder and the light arrived later, and the chestnut tree shed its last leaves so that the bench sat in more open air, less sheltered. Neither of them stopped coming. They brought better coats. Mara started bringing 2 cups of coffee. She mentioned once that her thermos ran too hot for her taste in the cold, and he had made a face that she'd correctly interpreted as agreement. And she simply started bringing a second one from the cafe on the corner and handed it to him without comment, and he accepted it without comment, and that was that. What Mara understood, slowly, and then all at once, was that she had stopped not traveling. She was somewhere. She was somewhere with intention, and the intention had a name, and she had not noticed the shift until it was already permanent. She did not know what to do with this, being a person built for departure. She wrote about it. Not for a publication, not for anything, just for herself in her notebook, in the mornings on the bench while he drew beside her. She wrote about how a person could feel settled in a specific square of space beside a specific person, and not trust the feeling, because she had always believed that settledness was something that happened to other people with different instincts, different histories. November deepened. The frost came first to the edges of things. The pond's rim, the iron bench arms, the grass along the path. They arrived in better coats than October had required. The 2-cup morning had become simply the morning. She watched him draw. She noticed the way he held the pencil like the line was already there, and he was simply finding it. And she noticed that he noticed her noticing, and said nothing about it, and she was grateful for that. The pond had gone dark at the edges. The tree was bare. The mornings were theirs. There was an afternoon, a Saturday, not their usual morning, when Mara came to the bench and found him there, not drawing, just sitting, looking at the pond. She sat beside him, not at the far end as she once had, but close, and did not open her notebook. "You're here late," she said. "Couldn't work." He paused. "My father died 3 years ago. Today's the date." Mara was quiet. She did not reach for anything useful to say because she had enough experience of grief to know there was nothing, and she suspected he knew that too. "I'm sorry," she said. "He would have liked this bench," Theo said. "He liked places that required effort to find. He sounds like a person worth finding then." Theo looked at her. Something shifted in his face. Not breaking exactly, but opening. He nodded once. They sat until the light changed. The pond went amber and then gray. The cold deepened. Neither moved. There are things 2 people can say to each other by saying nothing. This was one of those things. The morning fog arrived the way November fogs do, already there when you wake, with no memory of its beginning. They arrived at the bench one morning and found the park transformed. The pond had disappeared. The path behind them had closed. Rain has a direction, Boyo said quietly, to the fog as much as to her. Fog just sits there. That's what I was trying to write about, Mara said, in October. He turned to look at her. Did you get it right, eventually? I wrote something true. I'm not sure it was right. Those are usually the same thing, he said. She opened her notebook and wrote one sentence. Then she closed it. Beside her, Theo drew the fog. Soft pale marks suggesting empty space, the ghostly suggestion of the bench and tree, a drawing of almost nothing rendered with extraordinary care. She didn't ask to see it. She didn't need to. They stayed until the cold became something they would have to take seriously, and then they stayed a little longer anyway. She was writing this in early November, on a morning when the frost had come and the pond's surface was edged in white, when he said, without preamble, "What happens when you get an assignment?" She stopped writing. "I take it," she said. Usually. There's always another assignment. I've never had a reason to say no to one before. He was looking at the pond. That sounds like an answer to a question I didn't ask. I know, she said. I'm answering it anyway, so we don't have to have the conversation in the wrong order. Theo set his sketchbook down on the bench beside him. He turned toward her. In the cold November light, with the frost on the grass and the sky low and silver, he looked at her the way he looked at the pond in his drawings. Fully, without hurrying, taking in more than the surface. I drew you, he said, a few weeks ago. You were writing and didn't notice. I know, she said. I noticed. A pause. And, he said, and I didn't move. He reached over and took her hand, which was cold, and held it without ceremony, the way you hold something you have been careful with for a long time and have decided to stop being careful about. I don't want you to say no to an assignment, he said. I want you to come back. Mara looked at their hands, then at the pond, then at him. I've been coming back to this bench every day for 6 weeks, she said. I think the pattern is established. He laughed, a real one, quiet and surprised, and she felt it the way you feel the first warm day in spring, not as a temperature, but as a permission. The frost melted by mid-morning. The light came through the chestnut branches in long, pale lines. They stayed until the cafe on the corner opened, and then went there together, her notebook under her arm, his sketchbook under his, for the first time leaving the bench without anything left unsaid. The cafe was warm and close, smelling of coffee and something baking. They found a small table near the window and ordered without deliberating, the way people do when they are comfortable. Outside the window, the park path was visible, the curve of it leading back toward the bench. Mara looked at it for a moment. The path, the tree, the bench. Then she looked at him, and that was also the view.